We've got a pandemic. We have a skeletal health crisis. We don't have an obesity crisis. We're under-muscled and we're under-boned. And the thing is, nobody's checking. It's crazy because if you were the architect of your own building and somebody says, how strong is the foundation? And you said, I don't know, you'd be out of a job. But we are the architect of his own building. So it's our responsibility to check because everything is attached to the bones.
Well, it's a real pleasure to have Gary Rhodes on the show today. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you.
I have to give a little background on how we met because it was at the Health Optimization Summit in June this year, 2024. And I think it was Natalie Nidham. She grabbed me. It's like, you got to meet this guy. He's amazing. And we hit it off right away. And we both happened to spend a lot of time in Spain. So we've crossed paths here. And we always have these great conversations about our health and the latest technology. You're on it with everything. And your biggest passion right now is bone health. And because I was diagnosed with osteopenia, shock, horror, I don't know, 6 months ago or so of the spine, not the hips, oddly enough, I've been really concerned for myself. And you get some really, really great advice. And you're in with this whole technology we're going to talk about today. But let's just give a little background. How did you get into the world of bone health? Because you're a business guy, right?
Yeah, well, no, I didn't start out a business guy. I was studying to be a physio, but it was my grandmother. I witnessed my grandmother who was deconditioned and kyphosis. And obviously she had osteoporosis. So like any grandson, you want to try do what you can to help your grandmother. So that was really where I sort of focused on bone health and sort of how can I help my grandmother? Simple as that.
That's awesome. Okay. What a great mission. And I'm assuming her bone health is perfect now.
We did end up completely reversing her osteoporosis.
Wow. Okay. We have got to talk about that. But before we do, I wanted to address this question because I think I mentioned to you earlier, and I also consulted with my bone guy, Dr. Doug Lucas, because I got this message from Instagram that when I posted something about scans and bone density, and she said, this is just a scam to get people to do bone scans, sell supplements. She sent me a couple of articles and it was, again, it was a little bit conspiracy theory type and mammograms are bad. And that's again, a whole other scam. What is your answer to this? Because she says, oh, it's just to get people tested unnecessarily. What do you think?
Well, listen, a lot of people are in fear. So if there's anything that they feel threatened by, they're going to say, do or don't do something. So if we break it down into two areas, what device you get tested on, there might be a challenge as to whether that's, reasonable, like radiation or a mammogram. I know there's a lot of, not conspiracy, but certain science that says that, if you have multiple exposure to either radiation or the mammogram, it can cause, certain things that you don't want to happen. But testing is always good, no matter what you do, whether it's your bones, whether it's your bloods, whether it's your biomechanics, whether, whatever. You want to make sure that you know. You don't want to guess. You don't want to guess on any of this. So people that say, anybody that's getting a DEXA scan, it's a scam to get yourself supplements. Well, I would say, no, it's not a scam at all. It's a way to accurately measure something to then make a better choice based upon the information that you now have. The more information we have, better decisions we can make.
Well, that makes sense to me. All the biohacking community, we're all about test, don't guess. Test, measure, and assess to know if whatever it is that you're doing is actually working for you. So, and I always beat that drum of, let's test. Bone scans, of course. So I always say that it's better earlier than later to get any kind of testing just to know your baseline, even if you're perfectly healthy and young. And then you can wait a long time until you get it done or wait until you're not feeling so well. And then you see that baseline. But in this community, we are women in perimenopause and postmenopause. And I understand that in the US, health insurance generally pays for the first scan at age 65. When do you think a woman should get her bones tested?
Well, I just look at the science. We start to lose 1 or 2% at age 30. Obviously, women going through the menopause, they can lose up to 20% over a 5-year period. So when is now a good time to check something? It would be now. It depends what age you are. We tend to have a reactive healthcare system or disease care system. But if we're going to be really proactive and preventative, we should be all getting a scan at minimum 30 years old. Let's get a scan there Because even if you get a scan and you've got really good bones, which you're probably going to have, if we get that measurement 31, 32, all the way to, let's say, 51 postmenopausal, for example, if you've got osteopenia, having that data of 21 years is going to be really valuable, because you'll be able to see at what level and speed you're degrading to be able to actually do something about it. So we should all be running to get a bone scan. The fact is we're not, because we see osteoporosis as a senior person's, old person's disease, and we're all going to get it eventually. And the reality is that we need to check the skeletal health.
What do you think the stats are? I don't know if you know, of a person in their 20s, let's say, or 20 to 30, having osteopenia. I'm going to assume it's really low, but perhaps a few cases, but maybe I'm wrong.
We could all assume it's low, because we're actually, we're still building and regenerating, a new bone at that sort of age. However, we don't know what we don't know. And this is what's really exciting for me, and what journey we're going on, is because we don't have the data. We've never screened generally people from 30 to 55. It's generally over 65 when you've broken a bone. So we don't have that data. So what I can tell you is that the people that we've been screening, and here in the UK with over 3,500 scans now done, there's a high percentage than people would think that have got osteopenia. People in the 30s and 40s with midline osteopenia, which is scary, because we think about it, we're mid 30s, 40s, and we've got osteopenia. Well, we've read the later chapters of this book, and, by the time you're 45, you're going to have osteoporosis. So we're actually going to be getting osteoporosis a lot more earlier based on some of the screening that we're seeing. So it's a really good thing to do. We should all be getting a bone scan early, so we know what we know.
You mentioned 3,500 scans that you've done. And I think you're probably it sounds like you're also getting younger people to do this as well. You're not waiting until the 65-year-olds. What are you seeing in the differences between men and women in this category?
So it's an interesting question. Seeing, well, obviously women suffer more with prone to osteoporosis. So people that are over 50, this is where I get really excited, because it's like the stats that are out there are all interesting. We're all feared that, if we get osteoporosis, we're going to break a bone and we're going to die. Okay, well, what stats do we have? The stats that we do have, if you're over 65 and you have osteoporosis, you have a 15 to 30% chance of dying within 12 months if you break your hip. Now, it's not the break that kills you. It's generally the atrophy of everything else and other complications that do it. So, but between men and women, I look at men and women exactly the same, just women, obviously, that are going through the menopause. But we have to also take into account as well nutrient deficiency. Most people don't even hit peak bone mass. So where there is an obvious difference between men and women's hormones and other factors that play a role in that, I think that we can't just say women are more prone or men are less likely. I think that when you look at the bigger case of this, so many people now are undernourished and they're not impacting in the way that they used to do. We're a little bit more lazier. We're not running around like we used to do. We were all like a little bit more lazier. We might go to the gym more or feel like it's more of a gym culture, but we're not actually moving. We're going to the gym for an hour, then coming back, getting in the car, driving to the office. So the movement is less. So I think, I'm going to go as fast. I think we've got a pandemic. We have a skeletal health crisis. We don't have an obesity crisis. We're under-muscled and we're under-boned. And the thing is, nobody's checking. It's crazy, because if you were the architect of your own building and somebody says, how strong is the foundation? And you said, I don't know, you'd be out of a job. But we are the architect of his own building. So it's our responsibility to check, because everything is attached to the bones.
When you say obesity pandemic or epidemic, and it's true, yeah, we do have a lot of, people seem to be getting bigger and bigger. As I understand, having that weight on the bones actually is a good thing. And I understand the undernourished piece doesn't mean we're all skinny and undernourished. I mean, we're overfed and undernourished. I get that. So are you seeing, or do you know the stats? Is this somebody who's overweight or obese having better bone density than somebody under?
It's a great question, because obviously associates having more weight is putting more pressure on the bones on the body, so to speak. So it's interesting, because we have people that are definitely obese and have got actually good bones. So we have people that are really skinny that obviously have got osteopenia, osteoporosis. It's generally associated. When you look at somebody's physique and you look at somebody that's, under-muscled and look quite thin, typically without judging, you can probably tell that they're probably going to be underboned, because they're not got the physical, the muscle and their framework is very thin. I was with a lady last night and she was -4. And not that I've got X-ray eyes. It's just that the more and more people that you see, you kind of do just prejudge. You think, okay, osteopenia, osteoporosis, and it's funny. Yeah. But no, the people that are overweight still have osteoporosis. Of course, we've screened many people that are overweight, but it is associated to somebody who's got a weight vest on or more weight is pulling down more on the body. But fundamentally, that's not a main factor. Especially if you're overweight, then you're metabolically inflexible probably as well. So there's other things that are going to start to speed up the process of you degenerating physically, both with muscle and bone.
You're right. It makes sense. But there's always these exceptions. Like me, I'm lean and I've got really good muscle mass. You've seen me in person too. So, and here I have osteoarthritis, and then you go, well, how is it that, you do have these exceptions? And the people ask me, and sometimes I question, are these tests really accurate? And I'm just getting a DEXA scan, right? We know that's eventually, but that's bone density. But you threw out something different to me, and you talked about a REMS scan. And we've talked about the REMS with Dr. Doug Lucas as well. It's less known. The technology that you're using to test scan people is different than the DEXA. And let us know what is this REMS and what's the technology behind it.
Yeah, so the technology is that it's ultrasound. There's no radiation. It's REMS technology. So with REMS we can screen anywhere. We don't have to be inside of a Care Quality Commission hospital. So the good thing is that we can deploy screening service anywhere in the country. But what's really fascinating about the REMS echo-like technology is that it measures the quality of the bone. And when you just think about what is the purpose of a DEXA, the purpose of a DEXA is to scan somebody's bone density and then give them a 10-year fragility score. What's the risk of this individual fracturing over the next 10 years? With REMS technology, it does measure the bone density. So it gives you a reading of normal bone, osteopenia or osteoporosis. There's a Z score there for age-related to where you should be, not normal. There's 3 lines. So it shows you where, you are, where you should be. And it shows you the curvature as it goes down. And then it also shows you the fragility score, which measures the quality of the bone, the microarchitecture. Now, this is not on a DEXA. So if you just think about half of the information that the DEXA gives you, which is the bone density, is 1. REMS gives you the quality of the bone as well, and it has a combined matrix that gives you a 5-year fragility score. So for example, you could have osteopenia, but really good quality bone. So your chances of fracturing are, say, 3%. You could have normal bone, good green bone, but a really low fragility, so poor quality bone density. So you have a higher risk of fracture. So what would you rather have? Would you rather have normal bone and low quality bone quality? Well, I would rather osteopenia and good quality. So I think that the future of bone screening, especially on REMS, although the T-score is very important, the density, it's a great thing to have. I think the future is going to be looking at an individual's bone quality, because that's really going to truly predict somebody fracturing. So the echo-like REMS technology now, that not that DEXA is bad, but this is 10% more accurate than a DEXA scan. And if you look at how DEXA's done it, it's 40-year-old technology. It's kind of old. It takes one picture, whereas the echo-like literally picks up so much data in 2 seconds with the probe. It's unbelievable. And it's not dependent on user error. So when you get a DEXA scan here, let's say right here, across the road, and I get another DEXA scan, the chances of inaccuracy is massive. This is why they tell you to go back to the same radiographer, to the same DEXA scan, whereas the REMS echo-like is consistently accurate. Why? Because it won't give you a report unless it picks up that information. And the thing I love about it is that it's mobile. And this is where now, this is a tool now that can be used to be more proactive and preventative. You can't take a big DEXA scan around. We can go to offices, we can go to physio clinics, dentists, any physical location and provide screening services. And that's where I think that the future is going to have to do now, is provide early detection and better prevention of screening.
When am I going to get my REM scan?
Well, I'll put one in my suitcase and I'll scan you in Spain, because that's how mobile it is. I could literally put it on the plane with me, come with me and screen you. In fact, we should do this.
We should do a live. Okay, we're doing that later. But it's great for people who are nomads like me. And it's fantastic for people who move or change, even within the US, people moving from one city to the next or across the country. And they can always go back and get their DEXA scan with the same person. And I don't know if it's the same time that matters as well. Because if you know anything about the DEXA, you maybe know this, if this is true or not. I've got a new obsession. Her name's Lifting Lindsay on Instagram. I've been following her. She's all about hypertrophy. And she was sharing how the DEXA, which I think she was working for them, so she knows it really well, is not so accurate for muscle. We're talking about muscle because you use the DEXA for muscle as well. And she said you can load up on carbs before you go to the DEXA. You have fabulous muscle scores. And then you go the next day, you don't eat before you can go to fasting state, or you don't eat your carbs. And it shows that maybe you even lost muscle. Okay, so that was new information to me. And I said, wow, I didn't realize that it's kind of like a body composition scale, like it's keep it at the same time, at the same, conditions. Is that true, first of all? And then what about the bone?
Yeah, I mean, it's what I hear. I mean, everybody's got their own opinions, and it's really, does the measurement matter? I mean, visceral fat matters. The quality of your muscle matters. So sarcopenia, obviously, it's cost England 2.5 billion a year for people with low muscle quality. So we have to look at not just the bone, we have to look at the quality of the muscle. Now, Echo like REMS is bringing the software out that will measure for the quality of your muscle as well. So that technology is already about to be, I think it's coming out Q1 2025, which is going to be phenomenal, because we talk about bones. I got really excited when this device, I was told, is going to be able to measure the quality of an individual's muscle. So DEXA, I'm not sure. I just know that when you go get your full body composition with DEXA, we'll look at this with we really want to know what the body fat is. And the reality is how much of a difference does that matter? I mean, Peter Attia talks about the height, and your waist circumference by 2 is more of a measurement of what you want to know, because people are classed as obese. But the quality of the muscle on DEXA, I'm not too sure how accurate it is. But if it's anything like measuring the bone density, we've seen up to 40% inaccuracies with DEXA. Even the radiographers, and we know lots of them, and this is their own experience. So this is not science, but they're on the front line, they're scanning, they're seeing the reports, and they're seeing a complete inaccuracy time and time again with the DEXA. So it's the gold standard, though.
What percent you said? What's the percent?
Up to 40%.
Up to 40% could be off?
We've had somebody that's come in with a DEXA report that was -3. The age was 28 years old. He was a runner, sponsored by, I can't say the name because you'll probably figure out who the runner is, but sponsored by large companies. And obviously he's panicking, thinking he's going to lose his sponsorship because he's a young guy. How on earth has this young guy got osteoporosis? Well, the reason he got sent for a scan was because he had a couple of microfractures. So obviously that would concern a doctor to say, right, well, let's get your bones checked, which is reactive. But the good thing is he had a DEXA scan and it confirmed that he's got -3 osteoporosis, which for those that don't know, osteoporosis starts at -2.5. So this guy at 28 years old was -3. This is what you'd expect in maybe an 85, 90-year-old man or woman. And we scanned him on the REMS report and he was -1.8. That's osteopenia. That's a whole deviation different. That's like completely out of it. So the guy was puzzled looking at it, and he's of course looking at the Echo-like technology, which is not the gold standard. So he's thinking, well, is this machine even accurate? I mean, I'd love to think that this score is right. He went back for a DEXA scan and he was -2.2. So again, he's in osteopenia, not osteoporosis, but you can see the significant difference. Now, we also have to take into account the emotional component. When you tell somebody you have a condition, that can either make or break somebody. And this guy had stopped running for 3 weeks thinking he's going to break his bones and his career's over. And, he started to do things that he wouldn't normally do, like eat certain foods and drink alcohol, because it was just like a mental breakdown, thinking my whole career, his whole vision of his future of what it was going to be has crumbled. And this is why I think we've got to be super, super focused on making sure that we get the accuracy, no matter what test it is, that we double checked. He came back and had a REMS check and it was exactly the same of what we'd scanned within 0.2 is I think 0.5 is acceptable. It's 0.2. So for him to come back to us and have a consistent scan and it was exactly the same again, give him the confidence, and he's out running. And by the way, this is the biggest distinction. -3 on DEXA, okay, high probability of breaking a bone at 28 years old. Come to us with REMS technology, -1.8, but the quality of his bone was like a gymnast. It was like 10 on the score from 0 to 100. He had the bone strength of a gymnast, which gave him a massive boost of confidence. And he's back out there running now. And obviously his fracture was down to something else. So, but that just shows you the power of getting the person telling you what the results are.
That's unbelievable. It's incredible. And I can totally understand the diagnosis of something, whatever it is, how people can react emotionally and then maybe take steps that are contra what they should be doing. So thank you for that. That's really important. For anyone who doesn't know what is DEXA and what is REMS, what does it stand for? The DEXA and then the REMS. Do you know?
Yeah, dual X-ray for the DEXA scan, I think. But it's radiation. You lay down and it's a dual X-ray. A thing comes over you and it shoots X-ray through the body and it captures an area of the bone density. And then it works out how dense that bone is. So the DEXA scan has been around forever. It's old technology. I mean, I shouldn't really say this, but it's like the technology's just not moved forward. They've done nothing with it. It's like it's not being innovated. It's not being moved forward. And whether it was REMS, echo-like technology or something else, everything does move forward. So the DEXA scan is basically dual X-ray where you'll lay down and I think in about 15 minutes, it'll go up and down the body and it'll scan the hip and it'll scan the spine. It'll scan L1, 2, 3, and 4 in the spine, and then it'll give you a report.
Okay. Got that. And I think many people are familiar with it, but probably a lot of people aren't anyways, because you probably would not even consider doing a scan until you're 65, which would be too late. Now, what does the REMS stand for?
That's the radio. I should know this. It's the radio. I've just lost it. It's a long word. It's
a really long
frequency. One. Yeah, but it's basically like ultrasound. So there's no radiation. There's no side effects. You can screen a pregnant lady. You could screen a child. You could screen them 10 times a day and there'd be no side effects. So there's completely a safe way to capture the data. But the REMS technology basically picks up. There's a video. So if somebody goes on echolightmedical.com, there's a video that actually shows you the probe and how it hits the microarchitecture wall, and it picks up all of the data to show the density and the quality of the bone. It's fascinating technology. And this has been run side by side with DEXA, I believe, which has had over 750,000 now scans side by side to show a more accurate, consistent, accurate report of bone density reading.
Radio frequency echographic multi-spectrometry.
You can see why I thought of that.
I could barely say it. We just need to know REMS. Okay.
REMS, yeah.
Now, where can we get scanned with a REMS scan? Because it doesn't make any sense for me. To be honest, it sounded like if you can still look at bone density and you look at bone strength or fragility or frailty, then why even bother with the DEXA? I would just go straight to the REMS. You don't need both, right?
Well, I'm not probably qualified to say that, but certainly now knowing what I know, I would certainly just be going and getting an echo light REMS. And that's what I'll do every single year now for the rest of my life to get the accuracy that I need and the bone quality that's not on the DEXA. But where you can get a REMS, there's more and more. There's around 1,000 of these in the world. There's quite a lot in America. Here in the UK, there's around 7 devices. There's a lot in London and there's one in Leeds. So I don't know where people are around the world, but if you just go on Echo Light REMS, Google it, the places will come up. More and more people now are seeing this technology, physicians, doctors, chiropractors, biohacking centers, because the good thing about this is now it's not in the hands right now of the medical system in terms of CQC. You don't need to have Care Quality Commission. I've got a DEXA scan in one of my clinics in the north, but what it takes to go through the CQC is quite lengthy. And it's the right thing because we could pretty much be a hospital there. It's got all the governance, whereas Echo Light now is going to be able to be freely, put into the marketplace, which ultimately is going to give people access to getting a scan. We want people to start thinking about now is don't just wait until there's a problem, like anything. If you're a human being, unless you're a jellyfish, you should be looking at how can you go and check and measure your bone density, because it's not just the structure. 6% of magnesium is housed in the bone. There's so many more of the benefits metabolically why you should be looking at the quality of your bone. If you're an athlete, you might think, well, why would I get a bone scan? Well, if you want to be more explosive, be less prone to injury, you can never become stronger than the skeletal system. Everything, the muscles is all attached to the framework. So as an athlete, when you want to know how strong your bones are, and actually then what can you do to go from normal bone density to maybe one deviation above normal and have the bone density of nearly 2 people. Because a lot of people that I know, especially Dr. John Jaquish, his bone density is 1.5 deviation above normal because he's using something called Biodensity, which is a device that helps you to really strengthen the bone density safely. It's like a bone loading device. So you can access the strongest biomechanical range and self-load safely. So if somebody's got osteoporosis, this is a good thing to use. But also if you're an athlete, it's incredible. So it's not just for the grandparents or, it's for everybody.
Wow. How much does this cost to get a
Yeah, it depends. It's variable. I mean, it's in England, it's £150 to, I think, £200 in that price range. And then in the US, I think it can go up to $300, which is, I think it's about £220. So under £300, I would say is the price, but roughly £150 in England.
Okay. So we're looking between $200 and $300 or $250 and $300 in the US. Okay. Now, let's say somebody tests, even with the REMS, the DEXA and or REMS, and they are in osteoporosis or even osteopenia. How can they reverse it? Because you mentioned something about some kind of other machine that we use. And there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, but what would you advise somebody to do if they want to reverse this?
Well, first of all, we have to look at the nutrition, getting the bloods is good, generally what would happen if somebody had osteopenia, osteoporosis. And this is what Echo-like REMS is building out. We're building out clear pathways. So when you get a scan, and let me just back up a second. When you get a DEXA scan and you've got osteopenia, osteoporosis, generally the doctor's going to either put you on some medication and refer you to, here in England, the Royal Osteoporosis Society, which is basically weight-bearing exercises, walking, just basic stuff. But we know that that's not really doing anything because nobody's reversing osteoporosis. And it's at what rate are you actually losing bone density? You have osteoblasts that build new bone and osteoclasts that eat the old bone. It's at what rate? If osteoblasts building 2 a day and osteoclasts only eating 1, we're good. It's at what point does it only build 1 and it eats 1.5? Does it eat 2? And then we start to degrade very quickly. So we have to look at a multiple approach here. It's not just the device I've mentioned. That's just the stimulus. We need impact. We need to challenge the body. But then we need to look at lifestyle, sleep, nutrition, predispositions, all of these things. So how deep anybody wants to go, truly. If I had osteoporosis, I would be getting my bloods done. I'd be looking at what supplements I'm deficient in, what raw materials I'm deficient in. Because when you self-load the body or compress bone, what happens is it recalcifies and it wants to pull minerals into the bone. But if you don't have them ready available, then that's not a good thing. So we have to look at lifestyle. We have to look at sleep. If it's a menopausal woman, you want to start looking at your hormones, and that's where you need to see a specialist. So what we've done now here in England, and I hope this sets the standard for the world, which is a big statement, is that it becomes the now what. When somebody gets a scan and then doesn't get a chance to see a consultant, those people are dropping off. And some of these people are dying. So many people die every month when they break their hip and die. It's not necessary. It's so preventable. So how do we get these people the information that matters and then get them on a pathway? You mentioned Dr. Doug Lucas there in the US. He's a phenomenal guy who has built out a whole community with advice and guidance on how you can, reverse osteoporosis and what the next steps are. So instead of trying to be everything to everyone, we have real experts in the field there that have dedicated their life towards helping people get the right information. So then in 12 months' time, when they have another scan, the whole point of this is we scan you again in 12 months. And it's what we do in the middle that matters. So to your question, there's many things that you can do, but it's just going back to basic, checking your sleep, nutrition, getting your bloods checked, seeing what supplements you need to be topping yourself up in, vitamin D3, magnesium, all of these supplements that you might think, well, I'm taking them. When was the last time you checked that you're actually absorbing them? So a lot of people say, well, I take vitamin D3, I go running, I go to the gym, I'm doing all these amazing things, and yet still I've got osteopenia, osteoporosis. There must be something missing. So let's look at the bloods. And then we look at your supplements, you actually realize that you're low in vitamin D3, which is key.
So you just mentioned vitamin D and how important that is. And my doctor, when he said, well, it's not even my doctor, it was a doctor. Actually, it was a traumatologist we have in Spain. It's like the guy was checking me for my osteoarthritis. And I said, hey, look at this scan that I just did in the other room. And he said, okay, just take calcium plus vitamin D. He gave me like a little effervescent and just walk. Like you said, it's not quite doing enough. And I walked out the door just like knowing that this is not going to be good enough. So why is why is vitamin D important? And you were mentioning also it's important to know that you're absorbing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's essential for bone health. I mean, obviously it needs to have magnesium. So many people are deficient, and we just guess. We go to the supplement shop and we think vitamin D3 is good and we need magnesium, we need omega-3, we need CoQ10. And we get told about a new supplement that we've never heard of and we think, let's take all these things. Our body needs the raw materials to build the cells. But it also needs the stimulus, the impact. It's like if we just had protein and we didn't go to the gym, we're not going to build muscle. If we're going to go challenge and compress as bone, we need to be able to pull those raw materials in, but it needs the stimulus. It needs compression. So you think about gymnasts, they have the strongest bone density in the world because when they hit the ground, bones compress, expand, it recalcifies and it pulls minerals in. We need to have those minerals available. So if we're deficient in any of those minerals, what we actually build in the bones with nothing. It's like going to the pantry to make your kids' food and there's nothing in there. So it's crucial that we have the raw materials that we need. And that's why testing is really important. We need to check supplementation of what we're low in. We should be doing this anyway for all of the functions in the human body, not just for the bone density. And the bone density is super important. It's where the blood's built. It's where the immune system is. It's a reservoir. When you're stressed out and got, anxiety and depression or whatever it is and cortisol pumping, it goes to the bone and it pillages what is in there, what mineral, what storage it has. And if you're depleted in that and you've got weak bones and weak muscles, it's not just the osteoporosis you need to worry about. You are, speeding up aging in a rate that you would not be really looking at. So vitamin D3 is really important. It needs to be taken with care too. Anybody that's listening to this, there's a lot of things that are being said. You just need to make sure that you are getting the right supplementation for you and check it. Always check it. Like you said, as biohackers, you want to test it. You want to check it, whatever you then do, and then check it again to make sure it's working. Because so many people are taking supplements and it's not that it's a bad supplement. They might not be able to absorb it. So you want to make sure that you're methylating properly and doing the right things. It's just checking like a pilot would always check certain things. You've got to do that with your body. It's that important.
And I imagine a lot of people, and I've done this before too, where you think, oh, I start a vitamin and then you don't have your next checkup for a whole year. It can happen with hormones too. And you don't buy the whole year's supply of the supplement. You pretty much trail off of it. And then you don't test in time or you're not taking it enough. So it's another important thing. But I've spoken to several women on the podcast who are athletes or athletic, and they're in their 60s, and they both have told me they've got osteoporosis. So, it's crazy because they're lifting heavy weights, they're running, they're doing all the impact exercises. They wouldn't surprise themselves. They're healthy. Generally healthy. We're assuming that they know what a healthy diet and lifestyle is. It's not the sad American diet, at least. And when I asked them, are you on a bioidentical hormones or hormone therapy? Have you ever taken it? And they both said no. This is like the two women I've interviewed. I'm like, interesting. So I'm wondering, and we know that hormone therapy has an impact on their bone health. And it's been approved, estrogen has been approved to protect against osteoporosis. I hate that word protect. Because when we say protect, we're assuming, we just take HRT and that's it. I don't need to do the exercise or eat the diet or whatever. And I prefer to use the word, it just lowers the risk of getting osteoporosis. Because I imagine there are plenty of women who are on HRT and they still get osteoporosis or osteopenia. Hey, look at me. I've been on, I think personally it's been baby doses of hormones. And then again, I start to question. I did the DEXA and I'm like, do I really have osteopenia? Because now I'm doubting. Like maybe I'm in that 40% discrepancy there. And with me personally, I haven't been able to do impact, so it kind of makes sense with weirdos like me who have osteopenia. But how big of an impact do you think the hormone replenishment or hormone therapy is for women in perimenopause to take that for lowering that risk?
I think it's crucial. I really do. We just balance it. Everything's got to be in balance. So if we're lacking in something, we have to have the right balance. It's as simple as that, whether it's hormones, whether it's nutrition, anything at all, it's got to be balanced. And particularly with menopausal women, it's funny because I've actually interviewed over 200 menopausal women over 2 years, actually. It's 209, I think, in the end. But what I'd experienced there was that there's an identity crisis, and I'm nowhere claiming to be anywhere expert or anything, just my own experience. And obviously there's the hormonal changes, but they're at a point in their life where they've been so much to so many people, have been everything to everybody else, and they've forgotten themselves in the process. So there's a depletion of hormones, but there's a depletion of emotional drainage. They're just being drained of everything, and they've forgotten who they are. So all of this is going on. They forget to obviously then check the bone density because it's related to, estrogen. So there's lots of things going on. So again, it comes back to what is the minimum information that we need to be able to turn it around. And it comes back to emotional well-being. So I know we're talking about bone scans and hormones, but we have to forget all we really are is a set of emotions. So how can we help somebody really, process those emotions? So have a mechanism to process them, never mind vitamin D3 or estrogen or progesterone or all these different types of things. It's like, how do we help somebody process those emotions? Because we have a very high way to anger, resentment, betrayal, because we're kind of holding a lot of things in, which doesn't help the body, as you know. We don't want stress, and that fits into lifestyle. So particularly as you're going through the menopause, there's a lot of changes happening, but it's a lot of how do we deal with day-to-day thoughts that are in his head, because that determines as actions and behaviors to what we're going to do. Having a scan of a report is one thing, whether it's good or bad. Then what we have to do is another. The reality is, are we going to do any of that? All this good information, all this amazing knowledge that on podcasts that people have, do people actually take the advice and actually go do it? Well, hopefully, but a lot of people just forget because life gets in the way. We've now got to deal with something else. So again, it comes back to sort of kind of be selfish. And this is what I say to a lot of the women that I speak with. I said, it's about time that you focus on you, because they forget themselves. They've forgotten about themselves in the process. And it's not just your bone density or your hormones. It's like, when was the last time you was happy? So when did you do something for you last? Because everything you've just talked about is for everybody else. It's like you've forgotten about yourself. So I know I'm going on a bit of a side rant there, but we can't ignore this. It's really important that we find a way to, work with his emotions, because so many people are emotionally constipated, as I say, and we're just suppressing the emotion and we're just pushing it down and burying it alive. And then it only needs something to trigger us, which then brings the feelings back to, whatever traumas we've got in the past, which then derails us, and the tail's wagging the dog. And then no matter what we have to deal with, whether it's the kids or ourselves, we just don't deal with it. So, we're emotions and we're physical. We need to connect these two, because psychosomatic illness is a real thing.
So well said. Yeah. It's the mind-body connection, right? We know how big of an impact the thoughts in our head can have on our physical health. So that's a whole other conversation on how we do that. You mentioned there's a machine that you can use. I don't know if you called it bone density, bone strength, or what was it called? What is
Biodensity.
Biodensity. What is that?
So it's a device that Dr. John Jakish invented. His father worked at NASA, helped invent the lunar rover, very smart, intelligent guy. And obviously astronauts, they lose a lot of bone density. So it was really designed to help astronauts self-load whilst going to space with zero gravity. So this device is actually now on planet Earth. It's been around since 2007, I think, 2008. And basically all it is, it's a device that you sit in, and it's 4 positions. There's a chest press, a leg press, a core pull, and then a vertical lift, almost like a deadlift. You bend your knees, grab a bar, and it's basically fixed. So no weight is forced onto you. So if you fell over and put your arms out, you'd never put your arms out fully, or you wouldn't put them at your face. You would put them with a slight bend to withstand or produce the greatest amount of force. So my grandmother, for example, she had minus 2.7 osteoporosis. So weightlifting, she didn't really want to do. The heaviest thing she lifted was a cup of tea. So, ligaments was probably weak. So she was able to get into this biodensity device. And just let's take the leg press as an example. Everybody knows what a leg press is. You move through range of motion on the leg press. But if you get into a 120 degree bend and the plate does not move and the seat doesn't move, so your legs are at the bend, if you push against this and it doesn't move, what's happening is your knee is dropping down and it's actually compressing your own muscular system. Your kinetic chain is being forced to compress. Now, your nervous system is going to protect you. And this is where it's really smart, very smart. If you was to squeeze your fist as hard as you can, you'd never be able to break a bone in your finger because your nervous system would shut you down. It's called neural inhibition. You can't do it. So your own built-in system is there and designed to protect you. It's only when you have an external weight in the wrong angle that you're going to probably likely to injure yourself. And there's nobody knows you better than your nervous system. So when my grandmother each week was pushing and pulling on this device, she was compressing her spine, compressing her femur, putting the load through her knees, the joints, the ligaments, connective tissue, strengthening the whole musculoskeletal system. And every week that she went, she could see on the screen the force production each week getting stronger, getting stronger, getting stronger. So she'd increase the strength gains. And by doing this, she got all the benefits of a gymnast without the risk of any injury. And she was gone from being kyphosis to a good posture. She'd gone from minus 2.7 back into the normal range of a 30-year-old. So this is accessible. I think this is a main thing that people need to realize. When people are weightlifting and they're doing everything right, there's a minimum amount of force needed to trigger bone growth. This is really important because you could be going to the gym and thinking, well, I'm doing weightlifting. And weightlifting's great, by the way. We should all be weightlifting, strength training. We should be challenging the body. Generally, we can't challenge the body because most people are like shoulder injuries, back injuries, and then they've got to go lift a ridiculous amount of weight to actually compress bone. And it's 4.2 multiples of your body weight. So whatever you weigh, 4.2 of that has to go through the body. And biodensity enables you to do that safely. And you can see if you're 100 kilogram and you're pushing 900 kilogram, people pushing 7 to 10 times their own body weight on this thing. It's crazy.
Wow. Does it hurt or is it hard?
Yeah, it's really painful. No, it's not.
How stressful is this?
No, do you know what? It's really not. It's 5 seconds. And people say 5 seconds. It's like, well, just think about this. When a gymnast hits the ground, it's less than 1/110th of a second. It's literally that quick. So when you're self-producing your force and pushing, we can see on the screen how much force you're actually producing at a maximum. But then what we see is it starts to come down. So while we're looking at you and we can see you pushing, your nervous system is already like pushing against it, but it's coming back down again. So in as little as 5 seconds, we can enable you to really put a ridiculous amount of force through the body, which then is going to trigger bone growth, which most people can't lift too much to start with. But as they start doing it week by week, it's phenomenal how quickly the body adapts.
How many rounds of 5 seconds are you doing or sets?
So there's 4 movements. So it's 5 seconds per move. So 20 seconds of effort per week is the minimum dose response needed to trigger bone activity. It's crazy. It strengthens the ligaments, connective tissue. It's probably the biggest, bestest biohack, I'm going to say, because without this physical body, kind of just starts to degrade. So this is like a super biohack to give you access to your strongest range of motion. You see, when we're weightlifting, we lift a bar on his chest. That's the weak range of motion. So as you start to push forward, you become 7 times more capable in your strongest biomechanical range. So the question has to be is why are we lifting in his weakest range of motion? We're never going to get access to his strongest capability. It means we're overloading the joint and underusing our potential. Now, I'm not saying don't go lift weights, but if you just think about it logically, you would never set off in a car in 5th gear. And as you start speeding up, go down to 1st gear. But that's what we do in weightlifting. And that's why most people are overloading the joint and they're never getting access to how truly strong they are. We are so much more stronger than lifting any weight. When you push in your strongest range of motion, you are really strong. We are so strong. It's not directly correlated to weightlifting because we never get access to that.
Amazing. So did you say once a week?
Yeah, once a week. The research shows 1 time per week. Because remember, the activity of rebuilding the osteoblast, that formation's around 4 to 5 days. So yeah, it's like going to the gym. You need to have time to rest and repair.
I'm sure people have heard of something called OsteoStrong, which you're very familiar with. What's the difference?
So OsteoStrong is a franchise company and they bought Biodensity. So they bought the Biodensity device we're talking about. And as they started to open more clinics, they then licensed technology off of Performance Health System. So it's the same technology, but Biodensity is the original device and OsteoStrong's a business that's brought in Biodensity. And they've evolved. They broke the machine down into 4 machines. Same machine, same movements. It's exactly the same thing. The best way to describe it is it's called osteogenic loading, bone loading. This is just a device that enables you to safely go and push and pull in those 4 movements that ultimately help you strengthen the whole musculoskeletal system.
So if somebody finds an OsteoStrong in their area, they will likely have the Biodensity machine, correct?
I think some of the OsteoStrongs have still got the Biodensity machine. Remember, OsteoStrong is the name of the company. Biodensity is the name of the device. But OsteoStrong now have got their own equipment and it's called Spectrum, but they're licensed the technology from Performance Health Systems. So it's the same. If you go to an OsteoStrong, which I would encourage everybody to do, they can get access to an OsteoStrong they should go and use the technology, which is osteogenic loading. And there's over 100 biodensity locations out there as well. But anybody that can get access to this technology, they absolutely should.
Osteogenic technology is what you said.
Osteogenic loading.
Oh, sorry, osteogenic loading. That's the technology. How prevalent is this? I mean, I understand it. I'm going to guess in the US, you can find a lot of this, maybe in London, but what about other parts of the world?
Yeah, we're in Canada, Asia, Australia, osteogenic loading's all around the world. I know it's in Sweden, Iceland, Greece, Bulgaria. I know because I worked with OsteoStrong for many years. So we opened up, a number of countries internationally, and there's some incredible locations. India, I believe, has opened. So, if you Google osteostrong.me or go on biodensity.com, or, you'll see the locators around the world as to where you can get access to it.
Oh, okay. Biodensity.com, and then they can find out. So I will have that link in the show notes because that's kind of major. So let's review what are the things that are important for a woman to do who is going through this perimenopause to menopause transition to reverse osteoporosis.
First thing to do is the journey to bone health starts with knowing your T-score and the quality of your bone. So it's to get a scan. That's where it starts. Because people going through the menopause might not get a scan. They might not know they've got any type of deconditioning with the bone. So first things first, find a REMS technology, echo light, or even if it's a DEXA, whatever you get access to getting a scan, get that. Once you get that scan, then obviously it's to work with your menopause doctor expert to make sure that you're on the right hormonal balance, getting everything in balance. Look at lifestyle, sleep, nutrition. I break it down into the 5 doctors who my mentor, Paul Check, talks about, which is Dr. Quiet, Dr. Diet, Dr. Happy, Dr. Movement, and then the 5th doctor, which I've added, is Dr. Truth, which is kind of your own internal voice system. So we have to find a time to not be reacting. So find a quiet place because we're always reacting. That means we stress, we eat the wrong foods, we don't do the exercise. But if we can just look at our life, especially going through the menopause, if there's any time in history, in your lifetime of history, it's now when they really need to focus on their health, physical and emotional health. And you're just going to find, I'm sure you can put links in here to the people that are, experts in nutrition, whether you're vegan, whether you're meat, it doesn't matter. I don't care what people eat. We just want to make sure that when we check your bloods that, that you have got the right nutrition and the right balance. So there's lots of information now. In fact, there's too much information, but we just need to simplify it. Sleep, nutrition, hydration, and movement. As long as you're doing that consistently well, then great.
Perfect. Wow. I like how you kept it simple. So that we just broke it down. So we're going to wrap this up, and we can find more about you on your website, GaryRhodes.io, Instagram and LinkedIn. I'll have links to all of that. And you mentioned a website called Screen My Bones and Performance Health MSK. What are those about?
Yeah, great. So Screen My Bones is what we set up here in the UK. So we've partnered with Echo Light UK, which is the technology from Italy, which is phenomenal. And our mission really is to provide a nationwide screening and to be preventative. So we're looking to go to corporate buildings. We're working a lot in physios, chiropractors, dentist office. So we're providing screening days, and we're also providing Screen My Bones licenses. So we'll actually sell the technology, but we're not the arms dealer. We're making sure that the automated pathways are all in place. We're working with doctors now to train them on how to interpret REMS. Because if you have a REMS report and it goes to your GP, respectfully, the GP will probably send you back for a DEXA scan. So, we're excited about really, we've got a great team of doctors as well that are training other doctors on how to read the report. And then Performance Health MSK is a division of Performance Health. So everyone's heard of the company Power Plate, the vibration plate. Performance Health MSK is a division of this company, which includes the biodensity. So when we look at MSK, everyone's talking about MSK now and, physical strength. Well, Performance Health have got a dedicated division now with a suite of their products with biodensity, Power Plate, and the Rev Bike. The Rev Bike basically is like Peloton, the Antichrist. It has the vibration in the pedals. So when we talk about increasing VO2 max and you want the powerfulest modalities on planet Earth, I've got to tell you, biodensity, Power Plate, and the Rev Bike are 3 of the top modalities because you're hitting musculoskeletal health, you're hitting VO2 max, and it's all done in a very, very short amount of time. These things are designed to get results. It's data-driven, results-driven, and this technology can be placed into any existing location. So again, what we want to do from a high level is how do we get this technology accessible for everybody. We don't need to go and open our own clinics. We need to collaborate with already existing clinics, other biohackers, other doctors, other physicians, and place the technology so it's affordable and people can actually get access to using it. So yeah, Screen My Bones, and the solution is Performance Health MSK.
I want it all. I want that power plate, the biodensity, and the bike all in one place and in Spain. And I guess it's not going to happen right now, but hopefully in the future. So if anyone listening here now wants to get connected with Gary to get these machines where you're at, please do. Otherwise, you go to the biodensity.com website. You can also find that near you. And before I let you go, what do you think is the most important thing a woman needs to know about her bones?
It's a great question. There's so many things they need to know. But if I was just to simplify it, it would be, what do they need to know about the bones? The life force is within your bones. You better check them.
Got it. Check it. Very good. Thank you so much, Gary. I'm excited to follow your journey and get all these machines, or at least get women to reverse their osteoporosis and osteopenia and get back to you and tell you how awesome it was. So thanks so much and have a great day.
Thank you.